At the big table with me now is Gil Murciano. He is a Middle East analyst with the German Institute for International and Security Affairs. Gil, it's good to have you back on the show. Both, as we heard, Netanyahu and Gantz are claiming victory. What does each candidate have working for him and against him at this stage?
Yes, if you need a proof for the fact that this race is too close to call is this claim of victory by both candidates. One of the interesting things is really about the small parties at the moment. Zehut and the New Right, according to the polls, are not passing the threshold, which might influence the entire composition of the blocks, the so-called blocks of the left and right. If we speak about tomorrow morning, really, for Gantz, there's two things really working for him. First of all, we have to remember that the evidence and the recordings of the Netanyahu alleged corruption of the indictments are going to be published in the next couple of weeks, which might contribute to a specific climate or public climate basically supporting Gantz.
And these are indictments against him on corruption charges, right?
One of them on bribery, others on different issues, but the idea is that they were held off in order not to serve as election propaganda, basically, but now they're going to be out in the open, influencing the general climate. The second issue, much more indicative, when we define those so-called blocks, we have to take into account the fact that they were created, this separation, based on the assumptions that we have a classic left versus right elections, but it's not what we have here. We have right versus center. It means that Gantz has a little bit more flexibility to actually deal with specific parties that we traditionally put within the right-wing camp, such as the Lieberman, Kulanu, and others.
That's because he's more in the center, so he can reach out then on both sides.
Indeed. His party is basically a wide buffet of opinions, stretching all the way from the...
Well, that would be a big strength, right?
Well, yes, absolutely, but there is one thing working definitely against him. You know, the traditional kingmaker of Israeli elections, the ultra-Orthodox, the religious parties. I don't see any option that Gantz would be able to build a coalition without them. Now, here comes the liability, Lapid, his partner, who made the separation of religion and state into his trademark. In many ways, the persona non grata of the ultra-Orthodox. Of course, never say never. But there might be changes, especially when it comes to the rotation, the planned rotation between the two. He might have to cancel it if we're looking a little bit towards the next weeks. He might have to cancel it in order to bring the ultra-Orthodox in.
But usually when we're talking about ultra-Orthodox, it's a given that they're going to vote for Likud, right?
Well, it is true that in the last decade they affiliate themselves closely with the right wing. But I think the most important interest for the ultra-Orthodox, and it's been the same in the last 3 decades, is being part of the government to preserve their specific needs, their specific demands regarding budgets and other issues. So it is a trade-off for the ultra-Orthodox. But if we see some cracks within the right, some defections of specific parties, they might choose to jump on the Gantz. Again, less likely than the other option, but still an option.
This election today was described as a vote of King Bibi versus Bibi fatigue. And of course, Bibi is referring to Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister. Is this election a referendum on his previous 4 terms?
Right. We've seen 2 different concepts at the center. One is the kingdom, Malchut in Hebrew, and Mamlachtiyut, which can only be translated as a sense or notion of public duty. And I think there was an attempt by the Gantz campaign to really differentiate the 2 candidates on this specific aspect. So it's really about this issue, not necessarily the agenda of the government. As we mentioned, very little difference on the level of core positions between them, but about the way you govern, the specific issues of corruption, the ability of Netanyahu to actually make decisions when he's involved or when he's complicated in all those legal issues.
Gil Murciano helping us to understand this election in Israel as the first results come in. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.